Boo! Happy Halloween and welcome to the Prediction Strike UFC preview that we do every week. This week we're going on up to sunny Edmonton, Canada for UFC Fight Night between Moreno and Albazi. Let's get into the prelim picks.
All right.
Sunny, yeah.
Like this. Not a bit.
Probably not this time of year.
Jamie Lynn Horth. All right. What should we like? That is massive for a woman.
Yeah, she's really big.
Bro, she knocked me out.
No, 6'5", that's not right. That's an old one.
That's what I was saying. Give her John Jones.
Okay, she is huge. Hold up. Let me pull up her actual size because that's important. She is actually really big. All the other cards on this are right.
She's 5'7".
Yeah, she's 5'7", really big for this weight class. And she is a lot cheaper than her opponent in this one. She is like a 2-to-1 favorite in most markets. $2.63 on the app. Ivana Petrovic, her opponent, $3.68. And she is a solid striker. She's really big, like I said, very accurate, very powerful, good kickboxing techniques, mixes things up well, is usually the one pressuring forward. Generally good fight IQ, follows a game plan. Just okay takedown defense, but she does have very good get-up game. Coming off that very close loss to Veronica Hardy, where she got dropped a few times, just couldn't find success using her size to bully her around like she is generally able to, like we've seen before. I'd say my one concern with her here is just a slight ring rust, hasn't fought since that Veronica Hardy fight in December 2023. So not as active as you'd like her to be. But Ivana is also a pretty well-rounded fighter, mostly a grappler, generally just like high volume striker, not dangerous or anything. Wrestling is solid, good BJJ. Her normal game plan is work you against the cage, drag you down from there, which is a really difficult game plan to implement against a fighter who's sort of a weight bully, like is Jamie Lynn Horth. I do think Ivana Petrovic is probably the better prospect of the two, maybe the better fighter. I just think this is a really tough spot for her. Horth is so big. She is a good striker. I think she's just going to be too strong. So, and I think that's why the odds in other markets reflect that.
All right. The next one we want to hear you like. Cody Gibson. What do you like about him? So
yeah.
I'm going to grab some water real quick.
No worries. So Cody's $2.42 at the time of making these slides. Chad and Helliger, $2.97. Grant, do you have those odds in front of you?
Yeah. It is Cody's like minus 180-ish.
Yeah. So really good inherent value there on the Cody Gibson side of things. Also like him just from an analysis standpoint. Chad is a really powerful striker, solid BJJ, not the best takedowns or anything, but he's good on the ground, sets a decent pace. And like I said, he gets taken down a lot. He does have solid get-up game, but he's given up 14 takedowns in 5 UFC fights, 4 in his last fight with Charlampos Gregorio. And Gibson is a solid striker, works well from range. He's a very long striker, good takedown defense, generally pretty busy in exchanges. He can take you down for sure, primarily a striker though, coming off sub-win over Brian Keller. And both of these guys are coming off losing skids, and they're fighting each other. So one of these guys, I imagine, is probably going to be on their road out after this one. Chad, I think it makes sense that he's the underdog in most markets here. He was taken down 4 times in his last fight, despite getting the win. I see Cody using his length to control striking range. Maybe sneak in some takedowns. But I do think this is going to be a close one. I just think we're getting a really good price for Gibson here.
All right. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. Seems to be a pretty big price discrepancy. I want to say he's Canadian and supposed to be a good prospect, if I remember correctly.
He is Canadian. Yeah, there is a pretty big price discrepancy on this one. Mike is generally a pretty well-rounded guy, light on his feet, loose striking, good kickboxing. Technically very sound, works from range well. No like specific fighting base. He's just a true MMA fighter. That's what he's been training forever. Um, and he's definitely a finisher. In 5 UFC fights, he has a knockout, 3 sub wins. Most recently, he lost to Neil Magny, and he was looking really good in that one, but just kind of quit, it seemed, at the end when he started getting lit up a little bit. And Trevin, he is also kind of a bouncy striker, very light on his feet, moves in and out of the pocket, in and out of range. He'll throw a combo, step out, reset, rinse and repeat. Wrestling, on the offensive side of things, not the best, but he has good takedown defense at 71% here, which should be important. He has a notably good jab, sets the pace well, coming off a knockout loss to Carlos Prates, where he absolutely smoked. And I do not like that Malott quit in his last fight against Magny, who I do think he's probably better than. He looked better than him the whole fight. I do think, though, that you have to zoom out. I think matchup makes a lot of sense for Malott. Might probably not getting too much of a discount on Prediction Strike here, but I think he should be better pretty much everywhere outside of just like the straight 1-2 jab.
All right. On to the next one. We've got Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Hopefully I said that correctly. What should we be expecting here? I want to say I remember the Barriault name. I'm not as, like, I want to say I remember both these names, but they're not like big. If I remember.
Yeah. I think we've seen Marc-Andre more recently than Dustin, but Mark is the Canadian fighter going up against Dustin.
Is this in Canada?
Yeah, it's in Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, Mark is the more expensive fighter. I think that matches up with market consensus. And he's a pretty well-rounded guy, Marc-Andre. Good boxing, solid takedowns, good BJJ, good kickboxing. You'll see that he lands strikes at a really high rate, 6.12 a minute. He also eats a lot of shots at 5.67. He is not the most powerful guy in the world, but he can grind out wins because of that high volume. And he's coming off the Joe. That's where you'll remember Marc-Andre from most recently is the Joe Pyfer knockout loss.
Okay.
Yeah. And Stoltzfus, busy striker, real power, black belt in BJJ. And he's been implementing his wrestling a lot more recently, which I always like to see. He has more than 10 takedowns in his last 5 fights. He is a little bit chinny and hangs out in the pocket a little bit too long for someone with a chin like his, which I don't like. And you know, he kind of alternates wins a little bit, but his losses are for the most part like quality losses, good opponents, and he beats fighters that you would think he's going to beat going into it. I think Dustin is probably going to be dangerous early, so that's something that Mark needs to be aware of. I do think there's a chance that Marc-Andre weathers the storm later. But after the Bruno fight, like Dustin is very aware of his game plan, which I like. I do consider him to be a very high IQ fighter. I do think he's going to implement his wrestling more than he did in his past losses here against Marc-Andre, and we've seen that Marc-Andre can be taken down pretty easily. Dustin is actually really strong. He can just pick you up and throw you on the ground. So I kind of like Stoltzfus here as a little underdog pick. I think the grappling is going to be the difference maker here. What about you, Grant?
Taking Marc-Andre. I don't think the discrepancy is big enough on PS as well to warrant taking the underdog pick on there. I could see if you're looking at it elsewhere, but you're getting pretty much a 2-1 favorite or 1-2 favorite, I guess, in Marc-Andre in this situation with only a 50-cent discrepancy there. I feel like he's kind of a benchmark for guys in this division, he loses to guys he's supposed to lose to, beats the guys he's supposed to beat, like you said. And this feels like a situation where he's supposed to win against a somewhat inferior opponent, and it feels like a good spot for him to get back in the win column.
All right. Like it. On to the next one. Don't want to go that far ahead. Caio Machado versus Brendan Ribeiro. Yeah, I'm not familiar with either of these. This guy looks like he's in shape to the right. The one on the left looks like he's got a little bit more weight to him, so perhaps he knocks him out. Looks to be that way as well when I look at the numbers, actually.
Yeah.
So, is this for real? Are we getting a first-round knockout for free?
So he's not going to come into this fight at 250. That's where he normally fights. He's dropping divisions. I know. I wish we could get a fight like that. But, yeah, he's coming down to Brenson's weight class for this one. And he, even at heavyweight, though, like you'll see, like he's 250. He's pretty light for heavyweight. He's kind of like one of those new gen heavyweight fighters that's more athletic, more active, instead of just being like big and powerful. And he's not the cleanest striker ever. He does have pretty good footwork for his size, definitely higher output. You'll see that he lands 6.07 strikes per minute. He has nice counter striking, good jabs, good clinch work. I'd say pretty good takedowns, underrated BJJ. He's coming off a decision loss to Dontel Mays, where, like, I mean, he didn't look that bad. He looked pretty sharp in that fight, in my opinion. And Brenson is a striker at heart, solid grappling too, though. Moves forward at you, throws bombs, is definitely very hittable. You'll see he accepts just as many strikes as he lands per minute. Takedowns are mediocre, I would say, but he is dangerous on the ground. Definitely hunts submissions from both the top and bottom. Ribeiro, he can win a fight anywhere. He's coming off a loss to Magomed Gadzhiesilov, where he began to just like panic wrestle after he was getting pieced up a bit, wasn't finding it on the feet at all. And I think Caio is just the better fighter of the two. I'm hoping that the move down in weight classes just translates to him bringing more power with him, but we'll see there. Brenson is a pretty explosive and dynamic guy, and he might not be used to that sort of explosiveness relative to the fighters that he's fought in the past at heavyweight. But he is the cleaner fighter, in my opinion, has more ways to win, just better all around. I like him here.
Right on.
I like play. It does feel like with the value here, I mean, you're getting better value here. So certainly if you want to be on the Brenson side, you should be taking it on PS and nowhere else. You're getting him at half the price cost. I feel like it could potentially be worth the flyer.
Yeah, for sure. And Brenson's definitely like he's crazy. Like he's one of those guys that makes things happen. He's constantly looking for subs. Like, yeah.
I'm with you.
All right. Derek Lewis versus Jonathan Diniz. Familiar with Derek Lewis? Not familiar with this guy.
I was gonna just say fuck it, give me Derek Lewis in this fight, just because it feels like he's been on a skid and he's due for like an electric knockout for people to be like, oh, that's Derek Lewis. A clip on Twitter to go viral is just so due. But with this price discrepancy, I am left with no choice but to fade Derek Lewis.
Yeah,
in this situation. If he was the underdog on PS, I would have been comfortable taking that side on this. But I feel like he probably gets slept in this situation. I'm not super confident going up against a guy with 6 career first round finishes. I mean, this fight has the on paper to end in the first round. This feels like they're both going to go out throwing punches and someone's going to be unconscious after the end of round 1 or early round 2 type of situation. Just given the history for both these fighters. So, I mean, I expect this to be an electric fight, and I guess Derek Lewis always has a puncher's chance if you think this fight is going to end within round 1. But on PS, you have to be on the Diniz side.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going with Janate here. I mean, we know Derek Lewis, the KO king. I do think this fight is going to end in a knockout. I think it's going to end really early, too. But it's pretty 50-50. Like, I think we're getting a really good value for Janata here, so it's maybe a much better than 50-50 play. I just think it's like basically going to come down to whoever lands big first. Janata is faster, technique-wise, the better striker of the two. Lewis is low volume, especially in his old age. So yeah, it's like I think Janata is a safe play here on PS.
Right on. All right. On to the next one. Blanchfield versus Rose. Yeah. What should we be expecting between these two? People have been talking about Blanchfield for quite some time now, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, this is a closer fight than I would have imagined. I would have thought Blanchfield would be a bit more of a favorite, but I guess after that loss to Fiorot, a bit of her star kind of came down to earth a little bit. I feel like people were saying she was going to the moon for a while before that happened, and then you kind of get a bit of a reality check, I guess. I still think she cruises here. This feels like a spot where she should be able to get a victory. Super young still, obviously plenty of time for her to rise up the ranks in this division. Even if she loses this fight, I would be shocked if she doesn't eventually work her way up to a title fight in this division at some point. So this feels like a good investment when you can get in on the Erin Blanchfield train while it's still lower than Rose Namajunas' price on PS. So I think regardless of what you think of the fight, Blanchfield's a good investment, but I think she will win this fight and you'll get an even better investment than you would if she lost, obviously.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go on the opposite side of things from you on this one. Rose, former world champ, on a nice little run here, has been looking good at this weight class, is almost always the more well-rounded fighter when she fights, has beat some of the best in the world, definitely can't argue with her credentials. Erin is a nasty grappler for sure. Like relatively high volume striker when she's on the feet for a bit, but I like that she's single-minded, one game plan, always works towards the grappling. The issue I have with her is that she just has no takedown offense whatsoever. Like, for being so good at grappling, you would think she would implement that into her game at some point, and it's like that got exposed by Manon Fiorot. She couldn't get any takedowns there, and the striking was too sloppy to keep up. Like, it's based, like, it feels like the same thing I had with Mackenzie Dern. Like, the Mackenzie Dern hype train kind of came and left once everyone realized that she wasn't gonna improve her takedowns at all. I just think Rose has pretty good takedown defense here. I don't know if she's going to be able to get it to the ground at all. I think she's going to be stuck in a striking match for a lot of this fight, maybe all of it, with a fighter who's definitely a better striker. So I'm going to go with Rose here. You're definitely not getting a good price for Rose on prediction strike. No. I'll preface that, but I do think she wins this. I think other markets, if you're on the Rose side of things, is probably the play. If you're on the Erin Blanchfield side of things, go with it on prediction strike.
All right. On to the next. Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi.
I will very familiar with Moreno. Yeah, I will preface anything said in this round by saying that I am Brandon Moreno's biggest hater. I've been known to say this on this podcast. Hate the guy. Tired of looking at his face. So just throwing that out there before we get into anything.
Well, you don't like the babyface assassin?
He's such a little rat. He always just shows up and is headlining cards and stuff. And then, I mean, he was the guy for a while. Like, he was exciting in that trilogy with Figueiredo and everything, but I'm honestly sick of this division. It feels like there's a lot of just the same guys going up against each other and over again. It's time for some new blood. So
yeah, I'm not gonna
hopefully we get that here.
Yeah. So walk me through. Why should we be excited about Albazi outside of the price, I guess, here?
So yeah, obviously great price here, better than in the books. Amir, definitely a legit prospect, good grappling, good striking, sets a very fast pace, light on his feet, good long jabs, also good wrestler, definitely able to lower his level quickly, shoot straight, good takedowns. On the ground, good grappler, will work towards positions instead of chasing subs and then look to snatch things up. Coming off his win over Kai Kara France, where I honestly don't think he won that fight like his strikes and takedowns are both doubled by KKF. But I mean, regardless, I think Amir Albazi is good. I get why Moreno's the favorite. He's the former champ. Definitely like a dog. Like he just grinds. You know, he grinds out wins all the time. Like last two losses were losses, but they both came by split decision.
Yeah.
I think Albazi though can just time the takedowns, sneak out a win here. I hope he's extreme, like more active than he normally is with like high pressure, bunch of volume, because he's sometimes a little bit low volume, especially on the feet. But I think Amir is technically skilled enough to beat Moreno here.
The volume stats for Albazi are pretty impressive too.
Yeah.
7.17 significant strikes per minute.
Yeah, like if he can put on like a Royval type showing, then I'm all over Albazi.
Yeah, I guess I just like the fact that I feel like regardless of how Moreno attacks this fight, you could be decently confident in Albazi. Like if Moreno's trying to shoot takedowns and stall like he has in some of his fights, I feel pretty confident in Albazi's ability to not only just fend them off, but potentially even fight for a sub of his own on the ground. And I also like the volume numbers you're getting as well on the feet. I feel like he could win a decision that's made strictly based on volume of strikes in a fight like that as well. So, and you get the value here, obviously. So that's worth mentioning. But I like that side.
Hell yeah. It's Albazi weekend.
Albazi. But yeah, Albazi. Make sure you subscribe and buy some Albazi. But yeah, that's really all I got. I got nothing more fun. Boo if we haven't scared you already. But yeah, that's spooky weekend, spooky hours. Stay safe. Invest in your favorite players and fighters. And yeah, don't cause too much chaos. Don't do anything Grant wouldn't do this weekend. So make sure to subscribe. Until next time, peace, y'all.